Editor's recommendation for excellent works, Miss, there's no need to set up defenses. I'm just a blind person. At first, he just wanted to focus on developing well. Who would have expected to encounter so many people who helped him along the way? The neighbor's widow often gives him some tofu when she sees him living alone. After the daughter of the head of the household department fell into poverty, she only wanted to help him with laundry and cooking, and live a safe life. After learning that she was blind, the female leader of the demon sect had this idea in her heart. He doesn't know martial arts and will eventually be bullied. Forget it, I'll teach him. An accident happened, and Princess Cho met him, but I hope he never knows his identity and treats her like an ordinary person for the rest of his life. Even the current empress of neighboring countries confirmed that she was an undercover agent who had been lurking in enemy countries. Even more so, he expressed this emotion. I don't know what reward to give to such a good minister. However, several years later. Aren't you blind? You're blind when you open your eyes. Light-hearted and humorous, delicate emotional lines, excellent writing style, keywords of the novel. Girl doesn't need to be guarded, I'm blind with no pop-ups. Girl doesn't need to be guarded, I'm blind. Download the full text of TXT, Girl doesn't need to be guarded, I'm blind. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Is blind also an undercover? The beginning of the avalanche. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 is blind, also an undercover. The beginning of the avalanche. Newcomers seeking collection, in the third year of Daqing Wanhua. In the heavenly prison of Jingzhou Prefecture. Xue Mu groped forward with a bucket of swill rice. The prisoners on both sides were shaking the iron chains, trying to attract his attention. Sir, give me a spoonful. Please. Sir, please give me some more. The people speaking were each wearing 10-pound shackles with their hands. Under such heavy pressure, abrading the skin is already a small matter. Some even reveal flesh and blood. But Xue Mu remained unmoved, passing by expressionlessly without even looking. Not cold-blooded. But he was born visually impaired and unable to see. 2 days ago, he never expected to cross over to a blind man. When I was a child, I fell seriously ill and almost passed away. After being pulled back from the gates of hell, he became blind. Living a pitch-black life from childhood to adulthood. His father is a prison guard in Jingzhou Prefecture. 2 days ago, my father suddenly passed away. During these 2 days, he also did not feel the presence of the golden finger. The most outrageous thing is, based on memory. Their family is still an undercover agent secretly planted by the Great Xia Kingdom, with the aim of achieving the unification of the Great Xia Emperor. The sudden passing of his father naturally led to his identity as an undercover agent and prison guard. I'm blind, and you made me an undercover agent. Are you crazy? Despite the current abundance of information, Xue Mu still strives to remain calm. He must rely on this prison guard job, which he inherited from his father, to survive. Only by living can there be a future. As for the undercover mission, he didn't think too much at all. This is his current idea. Xue Mu. A shout brought Xue Mu back to his senses. Although he can't see, but being able to distinguish between sound and position. Then subconsciously turn your head to a position. Here. Xue Mu immediately responded. The prison warden Song gave him a cold glance and then said, "Go and send food to the prisoners in the cell." Xue Mu nodded and said, "Yes, Song prisoner. Give me a quick move. In the prison, whether you are blind or deaf, as long as you don't meet my requirements, you must go." After saying this, Song Wu left without looking back. Xue Mu naturally knows the current situation, and taking things seriously is the key. So he slowly groped and came to the side of the barrel. Although he couldn't see it, he could still imagine the food in the barrel through the foul smell of the swill inside. That smell is not just human. The dog shook its head when it looked at it. Xuemu held his breath and slowly walked forward, carrying a wooden bucket. And the other prison guards also looked at him, whispering something and occasionally mocking. He couldn't see, nor did he want to pay attention, as he slowly groped through the barrel alone. Only by enduring for a while can one have a longer-term future. The prison is divided into 8 levels. Jia yi bing ding wu ji gung xian. Among them, the A-level prison is a prison for thieves and troublemakers. Grade B prison is more serious, involving some cases of injury and murder. The lower down the prison, the more serious the crime is, and the more advanced the prisoners are. There were not many prisoners in the Grade A prison, so Xuemu went all the way to the Grade B prison. As soon as he finished descending the stairs, he heard the loud whips. This is a commonly used method of coercion by prison guards. The prison whip. Anyone who stubbornly refuses to speak up, the prison guards here can use various means to make you confess. The first prisoner in the Grade B prison is currently undergoing torture. After waving the prison whip, Songwoo gasped for breath and said, "You're not willing to say anything about him, are you?" He turned to look at Chen Ping and others and said, "You guys stay here and watch. I'll go have a cup of tea, and I don't believe he won't admit it today." Before leaving, a prison guard named Chen Ping cautiously reminded, "Boss, today is Xuemu delivering food. He's blind, can he deliver food to the prisoners? If you can't give it away, then transfer his position as a prison guard. Don't you have a younger brother who also wants to go to jail? Give you 3 days, go home and think carefully, and sit down with your parents to discuss." At this moment, Xuemu stood at the staircase. Although there is a certain distance from the prison cell. But he has been practicing good listening skills since childhood. So their whispers were also silenced by Xuemu Chuan. As soon as Songwoo walked out of the prison cell, he saw Xuemu standing in the corridor. "Have the prisoners in Jia Tian prison eaten well?" Songwoo was initially surprised, then frowned slightly and asked with a cold expression. Xuemu heard Songwoo's voice and immediately nodded to answer, "Song prison officials have already brought them food, it's the turn of the second-level prison." Songwoo looked at the swill bucket next to him and responded, Before leaving, he turned around and glanced at Chen Ping. Xuemu listened to the footsteps and heard Songwoo leave. He carried a wooden bucket and groped to the first cell. "Chen, I'm here to deliver food to the prisoner." Xuemu walked in and heard Chen Ping and Hu Daming chatting. Chen Ping turned around and found that Xuemu had arrived, with a hint of displeasure on his face. Then he whipped the prisoner in front of him fiercely with his whip. "Are you saying it or not? Tell me. Where exactly are the stolen funds hidden?" However, the prisoner still stubbornly said, "Kneel down and call out Daddy, and I'll tell you, ha ha ha. I see you don't shed tears until you see the coffin." Speaking, there was another sound of whipping. Xuemu couldn't see the scene in front of him, but he could also hear the brutality. Chen Ping is ruthless and ruthless. At this moment, Hu Daming said to Xuemu on the side, "Xiaomu, how are you? How do you feel on your first day in the heavenly prison?" I feel quite adapted," Xuemu replied. "Thank you for Hu's concern." "Oh, you're welcome. When I first went to prison as a prison guard, your father used to take care of me. Now that he's gone, if you have anything to do in the future, feel free to come to me." Xuemu quickly thanked, "Thank you very much, Brother Hu." "It's easy to say," Hu Daming chuckled. Xuemu took the opportunity to ask 2 more questions. "Brother Hu, I don't know what this prisoner did, how could he use such great torture? This bandit didn't do anything human. He killed 5 or 6 people and robbed a large amount of silver. The authorities asked us to investigate where he hid the stolen money," explained Hu Daming. Chen Ping, who was being punished, saw that Hu Daming and Xuemu were chatting, so he turned around and said to Hu Daming, "Old Hu, you should also take a few shots." Hu Daming was more straightforward, pointing to the injured prisoner lying on the ground and saying, "Brother Ping, this kid seems to be losing control of his urine. Why don't we take a break? This beast is tough and won't say how to fight. I'll go drink a bowl of water, can you leave?" Chen Ping asked. "Go, go, go." Hu Daming also agreed. "Work hard at work, that's exchanging your body for salary. Only by fishing can one truly make money." Before leaving, Chen Ping looked at Xuemu and deliberately said, "Xuemu, you stay here for a while, we'll come back later." Upon hearing this, Xuemu knew that Chen Ping was not well-intentioned, so he pretended to shirk and said, "Captain Chen, I haven't finished delivering this meal yet." "It's okay, these animals are okay to eat a little late, and there's no difference between eating and not eating these slops." After speaking, Chen Ping didn't care whether Xuemudong agreed or not, and directly pushed him in. Although Xuemu couldn't see, he could hear the sound of the locked door. He gritted his teeth, but considering his current situation, he could only compromise. The cell was filled with a smell of blood. Even the burnt smell of hot iron burning meat is mixed in here. Xuemu stood in the prison cell, unsure of what kind of prisoner was ahead. Just as he was nervous, he suddenly saw a yellow book slowly flying in his mind. There are 3 big characters written on it. The Criminal Decree Sutra. I saw a portrait on the second page, which seems to introduce the panel below. Criminal name. Jiang Sheng, evil level. 1-star strength. Fourfold pulse opening detention duration. 3 days in cell number 1, grade B offense. Robbery and robbery experience gain. 20 experience/hour newcomer's new book, Seeking Collection, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Breakthrough. Open the pulse realm once. Kneel down and beg for mercy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Breakthrough. Open the pulse realm once. Kneel down to collect. A scene in his mind made Xuemu lose his mind. The Criminal Decree Sutra will include prisoners with martial arts cultivation in the heavenly prison, and during the detention period, they can gain experience benefits through the prisoners, so as to improve one's own strength. If Xuemu wants to survive in this prison, he must rely on this Crime Decree Sutra, and let his own strength be provoked by no one. Just as he was thinking, a sound suddenly came from the ground. I only heard a disdainful voice. Even a blind man deserves to look at me. Is this Jingzhou mansion unusable? Xuemu didn't speak, just took out a bowl and placed it on the ground. Then he fumbled and took out a spoon, silently serving him a bowl of swill. It's not that I'm sorry for Jiangsheng, I just don't want him to die so quickly. Otherwise, his experience would not have been collected. At this moment, Jiang Sheng was disheveled and his prison uniform was covered in bloodstains from whips. He watched as Xuemu still poured himself a bowl of swill and immediately overturned it. He angrily said, "You guys kill me, don't insult me with this. Ants can still survive in the world." Xuemu poured another bowl and handed it to Jiang Sheng, feeling his way. "Leave the Green Mountains here, you're not afraid of not having firewood to burn. Let's drink." Jiang Sheng originally had a dying heart, but when he heard what Xuemu said, he took an extra look. But he still cursed and said, "Don't be so pretentious. You're just trying to trick me. I won't fall for it. I won't tell you the whereabouts of the stolen money." Xuemu listened to what he said without any hesitation in his heart. He doesn't care at all where the stolen money is. At this moment, he is paying attention to his information page. Name. Xuemu, Strength. None experience value. 2 out of 100 rewards. None. In this world, there are ordinary people as well as cultivators practicing martial arts. The division of strength levels includes opening meridians, nourishing qi, heavenly gates, taichu, shenfu realm, and so on. At present, Xuemu is an ordinary person with no foundation in martial arts, and has not even entered the most basic realm of opening meridians. Just an ordinary handsome guy with a slightly elegant demeanor. In this deceitful environment, only by constantly improving one's own strength can one survive. And there is a reward column in the information on this page. That is to say, completing the task of detaining prisoners oneself will earn rewards. Thinking of this, Xuemu couldn't help but get excited. At this moment, Jiang Sheng lying on the ground suddenly gasped for breath. It seems very uncomfortable. After hearing this, Xuemu knew that Jiang Sheng couldn't die so quickly. After all, he had to rely on him to increase his experience points. So he asked, "How are you doing?" "Water." Jiang Sheng seemed to be using all his strength to say this word. Xuemu immediately turned around. But he groped for the prison door, only to realize that it was already locked. "Chen Ping, this dog day, don't give me a chance." Xuemu began shouting, "Captain Chen, Captain Hu." But after shouting several times, no one came at all. At this moment, Jiang Sheng suddenly coughed again. Xuemu was worried that he would die, so he asked, "Are you okay?" "Grandpa, I can't die." Jiang Sheng pretended to be stubborn and then tried to turn around. But his breathing became increasingly heavy. At this moment, Chen Ping and Hu Daming arrived late. Chen Ping looked at Xuemu standing in the cell, but Jiang Sheng did not do anything to him. His heart was filled with disappointment, as he opened the prison lock while cursing at his mother, "You're still lying down, get up." Xuemu heard the sound of the prison door opening and responded, "Captain Chen and Captain Hu, I'm going to deliver food." Chen Ping glanced at him, although he didn't speak, there was a look of disgust on his face. As long as Xuemu stays in prison for a day, his younger brother will have less hope of doing things in the prison. But Xuemu ignored it and walked into the second cell, carrying a bucket of swill water. As soon as he left, he heard Jiang Sheng's screams. Chen Ping kept yelling, "Are you saying or not? Where exactly is the money you snatched?" Xuemu was groping for the bowl, pouring swill for the next prisoner, while listening to the sound of leather whips. But he remained indifferent, because most of the prisoners who could come to this prison were extremely vicious. It's not worth pitying these people. And in his current situation, he has no time to take care of them. After all, Xuemu's ability to survive safely is the key. In an hour, he delivered the swill and rice to every cell. He didn't have much to do next, just sat quietly in the corner, waiting for the gain of experience points. After a day's work, he finally achieved a breakthrough in experience points before taking down the value. Experience income. 100 out of 100. Xuemu chooses to improve. Breaking strength. 1 level of opening pulse realm. In an instant, he felt a powerful force pouring into his body from the top of his head. The chest was initially dull, followed by a puff of turbid air. "My whole body feels like I've been pounded several hundred times by someone." But he still gritted his teeth and persisted. For nothing else, just to improve one's own strength. As time passed, Xuemu could clearly feel that his body had undergone tremendous changes. I saw an introduction to the realm of opening meridians slowly written in the Sutra of Crimes. Level 1 to Level 8 of the pulse opening realm. For those who open a meridian, their physical fitness, strength, speed, reaction, and more increase with each meridian, far surpassing those who have not yet opened a meridian. Opening a meridian can easily knock over dozens of those who have not opened a meridian. After a moment of meditation, he swung a punch. Sure enough, it was discovered that not only was the strength, but also the speed was much faster. Moreover, there seems to be some enhancement in the 5 senses. He could see the contours of the room slightly blurred. Can increasing strength still cure one's own eyes? Now, it gave Xuemu more motivation. So early the next morning, he prepared the swill bucket early and planned to deliver food to the prisoners. The purpose is to see which prisoners on the first and second floors of the prison are suitable for increasing experience points. However, after wandering around, except for Jiang Sheng who had some strength, none of the others had any martial arts cultivation. However, What curious Shuemu was that in the last cell of the second grade, the sound sounded like an old man had just entered. He touched the bamboo slips, pondered the words on them, and silently recited them in his heart. From the register, it appears that this person is a court official. The head of the Ministry of Revenue, a sixth-rank official. But when he silently read what he had committed, he frowned. A small sixth-grade official actually embezzled tens of thousands of taels of silver. And it lasted for 5 years. Shuemu believes that it is very likely that this old man was used as a scapegoat. But he didn't meddle in anything, just groped and poured the swill into the bowl, placed it by the prison door, and then left. Like yesterday, after delivering the meal, he sat alone in the corner, listening to those prison guards punching. Other prison guards naturally wouldn't ask him to come and play. After all, he is blind. While everyone was happy, Chen Ping took advantage of the situation and came to Song Wu, who was drinking, whispering a few words in a low voice. Song Wu squinted his eyes slightly at this moment and then said, "All right, stop for a moment." Many prison guards immediately put down their bowls and waited for the leader's instructions. Song Wu looked at everyone and said, "Brothers, Jiang Sheng has been in our prison for 3 days now and has not been told where the stolen money is stored. He Jiaodian has been urging us to pry his mouth no matter what. Now, at a time when the court is in a state of chaos, we must make good use of every penny, so." He looked at everyone present and said, "Can anyone ask that guy to reveal the address where he hid the money? Then I will report to the prison authorities and get him promoted and wealthy." Shuemu couldn't help but sneer as he listened to Song Wu's words in the corner. It may sound like using the stolen money for confiscation, but in reality, there is probably not much money actually handed over to the court. Song Wu, He Jiaodian, and even the history of prison officials, layer upon layer of exploitation. He certainly wouldn't touch this thankless muddy water. The other prison guards naturally began to evade. "Boss, you also know that Jiang Xing's mouth is like a stone in a pit, smelly and hard, really hard to pry." Hu Daming explained awkwardly. "Yeah, Jailer Song, we really have no choice." After listening, Song Wu also pondered. At this moment, Chen Ping suddenly spoke up and said, "Song Tuer, I noticed yesterday that Jiang Sheng was not very emotional after seeing Shuemu. Instead, he started chatting with him. Why don't you let Shuemu give it a try? It's impossible to keep him doing simple things like delivering food." "Yeah, Shuemu also needs to be like us, trying criminals is necessary." The other prison guards, seeing the wind, also quickly spoke up. Upon hearing this, Shuemu knew that Chen Ping had set a trap for him. He explained, yesterday the prisoner wanted to beg for a drink, but his subordinates asked him to reveal the address of the stolen money before he could drink it. However, that guy still stubbornly refused to say it, and his subordinates may not be able to do so. "Shuemu." Song Wu interrupted him and said, "Since they recommended you, you can go there. Remember, make sure to find out where he hid the stolen money. If it doesn't work out, I don't think the other brothers will agree to you staying in prison and doing small things like delivering food. Chen Ping, give Shuemu the key to the prison cell." "Yes." Chen Ping immediately walked over, grabbed Shuemu's hand, handed him the key, and said, "Shuemu, it's time for you to get promoted and rich. You should seize it well." Subsequently, the crowd dispersed in unison. Shuemu tightly held the key in his hand and looked towards the direction where Chen Ping was leaving. A blurry figure also appeared in the line of sight. Not long after, he groped to open the prison door of Class B number 1. Although invisible, one could feel that Jiang Sheng was on the brink of death. But when Jiang Sheng heard the sound of unlocking, he still hysterically said, "Dog official, don't waste your efforts. Your grandfather will definitely not admit it." But when he looked up, he found Shuemu holding a bowl of water and delivering it to Jiang Sheng. Shuemu said calmly, "The water from yesterday has arrived today." Jiang Sheng looked at the clean water in the bowl for a moment, then pursed his blood-stained and cracked lips. In the end, he drank it all in one gulp. Search for collections, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. I have a widow neighbor, for collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. Grandpa come up and play, collect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Grandpa come up and play, collect. The next day, Shuemu remained the same as a few days ago. Send food to the prisoners on time. However, during this period, Chen Ping deliberately reminded Shuemu, the deadline given by Song Tuer to you is only 3 days. If you cannot let Jiang Sheng reveal the place where the money is hidden within 3 days, you may never have the opportunity to send food to the prisoners again. After speaking, 2 prison guards also chuckled. You should know that Jiang Sheng is just a hard bone. They fought for 3 days and didn't admit anything. I believe this blind man will definitely not be able to complete the task. But Shuemu ignored them and just sat silently in the corner waiting. During this period, Hu Daming kindly came over and asked, Xiao Mu, how is the trial going? Do you want me to accompany you to ask? Shuemu listened to the voice and smiled, thanking, Captain Hu, it's not your fault. I can handle it myself. Hu Daming looked at Shuemu and remembered that Shuemu's father had also taken care of him before his death. If Shuemu fails to complete the task, he is likely to lose his job as a prison guard. Moreover, he is still blind, making survival even more difficult in the future. So Hu Daming planned to interrogate Jiang Sheng on his behalf. See if we can extract some information from his mouth. But Chen Ping seemed to guess Hu Daming's thoughts and grabbed his hand, saying, Old Hu, come on, let's play a few games. How many games to play with? What games to play with? Draw a fist. Chen Ping also called out to the other prison guards. Shuemu sneered as he listened to the happiness over there. No matter where you go, it is common for small groups to isolate individuals. This kind of thing is most common in schools, even when going out of society and engaging in intrigue within the company, it's enough to drink a pot of it. Not to mention now being in such a deceitful prison environment. But Shuemu was not in a hurry, just sitting quietly. After being released from work, he walked out of the prison. He leaned on his cane and slowly arrived at a bustling place. Although I can't see it, I can still hear the shouting upstairs. Grandpa, come up and play. Come on tonight I'll play a flute for you. Shuemu walked towards the door. At this moment, a plump and chubby woman, despite being over half a year old, walked over. Oh my, official you're welcome, hurry up, come in and play for a while, said the beautiful woman, pulling Shuemu in. During this period, she discovered that Shuemu was blind. So she kindly reminded, it's okay, here we are. It's a great place where you can feel it without using your eyes, ensuring that your whole body can be released. Come over, Xiaocui and Xiaolan. However, Shuemu said calmly, I want to ask if He Jiaodian is here. Oh my, I turned out to be looking for He Jiaodian. He's in the upstairs building, I'll take you there. In no time, the beautiful woman took Shuemu to a wing room. Pushing open the door, the beautiful woman smiled and said, He Jiaodian, here is someone looking for you. As she spoke, she looked at Shuemu and gestured, Sir, please. Shuemu stood at the door, looking into the wing room. Although not visible, some rough edges can still be seen. There is a thin man sitting in the middle, with women sitting on both sides. Even one is hidden under the crotch. Playing with 3 or 4 alone, no wonder you're so thin. Shuemu immediately bowed and said, Little man Shuemu, I have seen adults before. Prison code. He tingly saw that he had been disturbed and was still a small prison guard. He frowned for a moment and said, What are you doing here? I have something important to report, Shuemu replied. If you have something important, just tell the prison officials of Song and come here specifically to find this prison code. The 2 strands of beard on He Tingli's lips were so angry that they straightened up. Xue Mu was not in a hurry and continued, it's about Jiang Xing's private hiding of money, which has been brought up under review. Upon hearing this, He Jiaodian moved his hand away from the geisha and pushed them away, saying, "Oh. Seriously. It's normal to have this reaction. After all, in everyone's eyes, money always comes first. With money, any woman can have it." Xue Mu nodded and said, "Seriously, the hiding place is." Before he could finish speaking, He Tingli interrupted, "Wait a moment." Immediately after, he took out a small piece of silver ingot from his arms and rewarded the woman beside him, saying, "Let's go." The women held silver ingots and kissed He Tingli's greasy face alone. He left with a happy smile on his face. Of course, they didn't smile because they kissed He Tingli's face, but because they were holding money in their hands. After everyone else left, He Tingli stroked his beard and said, "Tell me, where are you hiding?" "Jiang Xing told me that it was hidden behind the statue of Chenghuang Temple in the suburb," Xue Mu explained. "Oh." He Tingli continued to ask, "Are you the one who tried this matter?" "Yes." "Do the Song prison officials know that?" "I don't know." After listening, He Tingli's eyes became even more unfathomable. After a rest, he laughed, "Okay, I will send someone to Chenghuang Temple later." But as soon as he finished speaking, he continued to ask, "Why did you come to this Miaoyin Fang to find this prison code instead of telling the Song warden about it in prison?" He Tingli is not foolish. He detected a problem. Xue Mu naturally guessed He Tingli's thoughts. He immediately clenched his fists again and said, "Because I know He Jiaodian has always had clear rewards and punishments, I want to seek a reward." He Tingli's eyes couldn't help but squint and say, "Oh. Just talk about it. What I am doing in the prison is delivering food. If I want to do something easier, I hope the prison authorities can approve it," Xue Mu explained. He Tingli looked at Xue Mu and then tentatively asked, "Are you Xue Yuangen's son?" Xue Mu. "Exactly, my father drove the crane immortal a few days ago and I will replace him as a prison guard. Can't the eyes see? When I was a child, I got sick and had eye problems, but I developed good hearing skills." After a simple exploration, He Tingli agreed. "Old Xue and I are old acquaintances. If there is any stolen money in the Chenghuang Temple, you can be promoted to prison officials to be responsible for the inspection work on the third floor of A, B and C. Thank you for the great kindness of the prison guard. I have decided to do my job well and share the worries of Lord He," Xue Mu said wisely. "Ha ha ha, it's easy to say. It's easy to say." He Tingli saw that Xue Mu was young and energetic, and he was also a good seedling for planting his confidence. So he asked, "Do you want to try the food from Miaoyin Fang? It's very delicious. Thank you very much for your kindness. I won't disturb your elegance. Do you really not want to try it? Or the women from Miaoyin Fang can also try it. The women here are very moist." Xue Mu deliberately showed a blushing and inexperienced appearance in front of He Tingli. Finally, he walked out of the wing room. After leaving Miaoyin Fang, his expression once again became calm. The reason why he told He Jiaodian about this matter. The purpose is to consolidate one's current position in the dungeon. Only in this way can we avoid being excluded by Song Wu, Chen Ping, and others. The longer he stays in the prison, the more experience points he gains. This is the key to enhancing strength. He also needs to be very careful when making requests for rewards to He Tingli. After all, having too much makes one appear greedy. If you don't want anything, it will make your boss feel uneasy and think they have ulterior motives. So we need to be greedy just right. Not long after, he passed by a slum. I heard a mother cautiously say to the child next to me, "Xiao Xiao, I bought you a piece of bread. Eat it quickly." "Mother, what about you? Have you eaten?" "Mom has eaten it, hurry up and eat it." Listening to these conversations, Xue Mu couldn't help but feel emotional. "Behind me is a land of lights and wine, but in front of me is a place where life is ruined. Just separated by one road, there is such a big difference. However, Xuemu had no time to attend to these matters. Enhancing one's strength and allowing oneself to live safely is the most important thing. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Finally has a skill to stand by. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 finally has a skill to stand by. Early in the morning, Xuemu returned to the heavenly prison. In his spare time, he clicked on the Crime Edict Sutra. Open your own information page. Name: Xuemu, Strength. Kaimai Chong Experience Value: 240/1000 Reward. 1% Turtle Breath Skill. The panel of strength has already been adjusted. The threshold for experience points has also been raised to 1000. What excites him is that there is an additional skill in the reward column. Turtle Breathing Skill. Xuemu introduced the opening technique and learned that the turtle breathing technique imitates the breathing method of turtles to cultivate internal qi and achieve the goal of prolonging life. Gui Qigong consists of 4 parts: concentration, latent breathing, true fixation, and external fixation. As long as it reaches 25%, you can achieve the beginner level of turtle breath technique. This is also extremely beneficial for one's own body. That's great. On the one hand, it can improve vision, and on the other hand, it can prolong life. If this continues, one can become a master. Xuemu was also happy, and there was such good news early in the morning. However, Chen Ping and Song Wu and others appeared at this time. Chen Ping felt even more angry when he saw Xuemu sitting alone in the corner laughing. He quickly looked at Xuemu and said, "Xuemu, Song Tuer is looking for you." Xuemu actually heard their footsteps a long time ago, just pretending not to notice. Then he stood up and bowed slightly in their direction, saying, "Song Tuer, you're looking for me." Song Wu put on an arrogant look and then said coldly, "Xuemu, theoretically speaking, your father has been working in this prison before his death. As your uncle, I need to take more care of him. But I asked you to interrogate Jiang Sheng and ask him to reveal the whereabouts of his money, but you didn't do your best. Even if I had the intention of favoring you, I must give an explanation for this brother here, right?" After pausing for a moment, Song Wu waved his hand and said, "All right, from tomorrow on, take off your prison uniform and don't have to come again." Xuemu didn't speak when he heard this. Chen Ping saw him indifferent on the side and said, "Xuemu, don't think you can win sympathy by standing there all the time. In this prison environment, the capable are capable and the defeated are eliminated. It has been so cruel since ancient times. Pack your bags and leave now. Why did I hear someone trying to drive Officer Shui away as soon as I arrived?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone turned their heads and looked behind them. I saw He Tingli calmly walking over with 2 or 3 subordinates. After hearing He Tingli's voice, Xuemu also smiled at the corners of his mouth. Just now, he heard the footsteps of He Tingli, so he didn't speak up. When Song Wu and others saw He Tingli coming, they immediately greeted him with a smile and said, "He Prison, what wind has brought you here?" He Tingli frowned slightly and said, "Oh. Can't I come and inspect the prison cell together? What's going on?" Song Prisoner is used to being a leader. Song Wu was scared out of a cold sweat and quickly explained, He Jiaodian was joking. You gave the villain 100 courage, and the villain didn't dare to. It's just that I wanted to go to the door to pick you up. No need, this kind of flattery is the most annoying thing for me. After He Tingli finished speaking, he glanced at all of them and asked, "Where is Xuemu?" Song Wu was taken aback and repeated, "Xuemu." At this moment, Xuemu took 2 steps from behind the crowd and said, "I'm here." Chen Ping looked at Xuemu beside him and didn't understand why He Tingli suddenly called him, but he was a bit curious. He Tingli looked at Xuemu and immediately became happy, saying, "Xuemu has successfully interrogated Jiang Sheng about where he buried the stolen money, and has made a contribution. He is hereby promoted to prison officer to inspect the work of the third-floor cells of A, B, and C. Yes, thank you for the prison ceremony. I will definitely do my best to fulfill my responsibilities, Xuemu said, bowing down. He tingly ignored the surprise of Song Wu and others, then waved his hand and said, "All right, that Jiang Sheng is of no use anymore. I have reported it and can be executed tomorrow." "Yes." Song Wu quickly answered. "That's it, I'll go inspect the work in other cells first." Before leaving, he tingly didn't forget to take a look at Xuemu and reminded him, "Xuemu, I am subordinate. Work hard." "Yes." After he tingly left, everyone had not yet recovered. Hu Daming was the first to be happy. He patted Xuemu's shoulder and said, "Xiao Mu, when did you pry Jiang Sheng's mouth?" "I just found out by chance." Xuemu was not too high profile, just seeing this as an accident. He then looked at Song Wu and thanked him. "I have to thank the prison warden of Song for giving me this opportunity. In the future, I will have to learn from the prison warden of Song so that my subordinates can grow faster." Song Wu's face twitched slightly. At present, Xuemu and his official positions are the same size, both responsible for patrolling the third-floor cells of A, B, and C. But just now, He Tingli's attitude was already very clear. Xuemu is his person. Song Wu couldn't help but smile awkwardly and said, "Xiao Mu, I didn't expect you to make Jiang Sheng speak up. It really impressed me, and it was precisely because of that sentence. Father Tiger has no son of a dog. Your father is so talented, and you are not bad either. Work hard." As he spoke, he also patted Xuemu on the back, as if he was getting close to him. Xuemu smiled and suggested that he invite everyone to drink tonight. The prison guards around immediately changed their views, gradually transforming from Xuemu to Mu Gu. However, Chen Ping beside him felt a slight chill in his back, and he even wondered if Xuemu would make things difficult for him after his promotion. Unexpectedly, Xuemu poured a bowl of wine and approached him with a smile, saying, "Captain Chen, if you hadn't kept urging me to bring Jiang Sheng to trial, I might not have had the chance to be promoted yet. Although I am just a small prison official, I am already satisfied. I hope Captain Chen can teach me more in the future." Chen Ping was flattered and quickly took the bowl of wine, saying, "It's easy to say, it's easy to say. Xue prisoner will definitely have a bright future in the future. Thank you for your kind words." After finishing a bowl of food, Chen Ping's heart gradually calmed down and he said, "This kid is probably kind-hearted and won't hold grudges." When Xuemu turned around, he regained his calm expression. Early the next morning, Xuemu brought a bowl of chicken rice to room 1 of grade B. Although he no longer needs to deliver meals, today is Jiang Sheng's decapitation meal, and he has to deliver it once no matter how. Jiang Sheng seemed to have anticipated it long ago. When he saw Xuemu walking in with a meal, he said, "Sir, you're here." Xuemu groped and opened the door. Then he handed the meal to Jiang Sheng and said, "Have a good meal." "Okay." At the beginning, Jiang Sheng was very heroic, with a look of a young master who would still be a hero in 18 years. Over time, he gradually felt afraid. At this moment, Xuemu said, "Don't worry, I will take care of the elderly for you, and thank you for saving the people of Jiangjie village." Jiang Sheng didn't speak, just ate while shedding tears. After finishing his meal, Jiang Sheng said with satisfaction, "Sir, you can go on the road now." "Okay." Xuemu walked out of the cell and gestured for Hu Daming beside him to take him out. The sound of ankle shackles jingling seemed to remind Jiang Sheng that time was running out. He took 2 steps, turned around, and watched Xuemu slowly leave behind him. In the end, he followed the prison guard and left the prison. In the afternoon, the information page of Jiang Sheng is no longer available in the Criminal Decree Sutra. This means he has already passed away from the world. With Jiang Sheng's departure, 2 martial arts and experience rewards suddenly appeared in the Sin Edict Classic. Thunder Fist, 5%, Vision Insight, 2%. Experience reward. 500. Shuemu finally realized that as long as the prisoner died, he could receive rewards and quickly improve his strength. As indicated in the Criminal Decree Sutra. Tianlei Fist is a low-level technique, but with the improvement of breakthrough, it can still kill enemies with one move. And line of sight perception refers to the ability to detect subtle changes in thermal images within the range of the eye's line of sight. That is to say, even if he cannot see it himself, he can sense what others are doing and every move they make. However, currently this vision has only made 2% progress, and if we want to fully utilize this feature, it will require a long period of experience. However, now I finally have a skill to play with. Just as he was thinking, the last cell of the second grade made a sound. Shuemu frowned and immediately rushed over. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. 2 Prisoners with Martial Arts Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. 2 Prisoners with Martial Arts Cultivation. Woo. Shuemu walked towards the last cell of the Grade B cell while listening to the sounds coming from inside. Beside them, there was also a prisoner who impatiently cursed and said, "You dead old man, are you annoying? Can you shut up for me?" But groans still came from the last cell. Shuemu walked over. Although invisible, he can now see through his gaze and present a thermal image of the human body in his field of vision. I saw the prisoner lying on the ground, curled up. Mouth kept emitting mournful moans. It seems very uncomfortable. Shuemu took out the key, groped to open the door lock, walked in, and asked, "What's going on?" This prisoner has an impression on him. He is the head of the Ministry of Revenue who has been greedy for tens of thousands of taels. Although I can't see my face clearly, I can tell from the tone of my voice that this person is probably quite old. There is a hint of weakness in the foundation. However, it's normal, after all, in such an environment, not to mention the elderly, even young people with a strong aura can't bear to stay for a while. The prisoner did not answer Shuemu's words, just kept wailing. Shuemu is not meddling in his own affairs. Even if the prisoner in front of us dies, it has nothing to do with him. Corruption of tens of thousands of taels doesn't even have to wait until autumn to be investigated and executed. As long as the Ministry of Justice deems it useless, they will be sent to the execution ground the next day as a deterrent. Adhering to the principle that more is better than less, he turned around and prepared to leave. The next second, he saw one hand holding onto his clothes. Shuemu looked down based on his feelings. The prisoner said in a dry cough voice, "Sir, I beg for something." Shuemu cautiously took a step back. Even though facing an old man with no martial arts foundation, he knew that the environment in the prison was complex and anything could happen. He immediately asked, "What's up? Can you give me paper and ink? I want to write a letter to go out," the prisoner begged. Faced with this request, Shuemu naturally wouldn't agree. "I helped you, it's very likely that I'll lose my job as a prison guard. You better not think about it." The prisoner saw that he was about to leave and hugged his thigh again, saying, "Sir, I have been observing here for several days. Among all the prison guards here, you have the best character. You should help me, this dying person." Shuemu listened to what he said, although he felt a little more sympathy in his heart, considering the risks this matter brought, he ultimately refused. "Don't think about it." As he spoke, he pulled hard and let the prisoner's hand go. Leaving the prison cell, Shuemu carefully checked the door lock twice to prevent the risk of the prison door being opened. After confirming everything was correct, he walked towards the Grade C cell. A few days ago, the area where he was responsible for delivering food had always been a prison cell on the first and second floors. As a prison warden now, the patrol work has expanded to the third floor. He naturally needs to hurry up and see if there are suitable prisoners. There are some differences between the Grade C cell and the Grade A and B cells. Most of the prisoners detained here have committed heinous crimes. Based on the information previously obtained, the first cell of the third grade is locked up by He Miao, a key political figure. He is a scholar who once made comments like, "Qing Feng can't read, why bother flipping through books," at a poetry fair. In the Qing dynasty, there was extremely strict control over literary works and a literary prison was established. The crime of theft, abduction, and fraud is far inferior to saying such a sentence. Listening to the dying cries of He Miao in the prison cell, Xuemu could see how severe the punishment he had suffered here. However, he doesn't care. Xuemu now only cares about whether there are prisoners with martial arts cultivation. But I went to several cells in a row without any harvest. Just as he was feeling discouraged, the two cells at the back gave him a surprise. At this time, 2 pages of information appeared in the Criminal Decree Sutra, one of which was Criminal Name. Lu Xiaodao, Evil Level. 1-star Strength. Triple Pulse Opening Detention Duration. 15 days in Cell 8, Grade C Offense. Stealing a night pearl worth tens of thousands of taels experience gain. 20 experience/hour. The information on the other page is Criminal Name. Zhang Biao, Evil Level. 2 stars Strength. 5-fold Pulse Opening Detention Duration. 20 days in Cell Number 9, Grade C Offense. Robbing a village, resulting in dozens of deaths, including the local county captain. Experience gain. 20 experience/hour. Watching these two prisoners, Xuemu couldn't help but get excited. Unexpectedly, 2 more prisoners with martial arts cultivation suddenly appeared. Xuemu used his gaze to gain insight and glanced at Lu Xiaodao's cell. From the thermal image, this guy kept walking back and forth. When he saw himself, he even deliberately pretended, Sir, can I ask for some water to drink?" Xuemu shook his head and confirmed that these 2 prisoners could provide him with experience points before preparing to leave. Before leaving, he glanced at Zhang Biao's cell. According to the thermal image lock, Zhang Biao sat there motionless. But Xuemu could feel the killing sensation he brought. This guy needs to be careful. Then he left. After obtaining 2 prisoners with martial arts cultivation today, Xuemu was demoted from duty and released from work. The job of a prison guard doesn't involve everyone every day. As long as everyone is present on important days or when taking prisoners to the execution ground, superiors will also turn a blind eye at the rest of the time. Moreover, as a prison official, Xuemu doesn't have to do anything by himself, so after he was on duty, he came to the street to buy a portion of meat, packaged it, and walked towards Jiangjia village. Jiangjia village is a small village outside the capital city. The journey was not far, and Xuemu Hua arrived in half an hour. According to Jiang Sheng, he arrived at a thatched cottage to the east of the village. He leaned on his cane and knocked on the door of the yard. "Is anyone there?" "Here we go. Here we go." Not long after, an elderly man walked out of the inner room. She was also leaning on a cane. When she saw the young man outside the yard, she walked and asked, "Who are you looking for?" Xuemu stood at the door and explained, "I am a friend of Jiang Sheng and came to see you." When the old man heard the name Jiang Sheng, he was surprised and said, "So it's Sheng Er's friend, come on, come on." Xuemu walked into the yard and the old man noticed his eyes. She tentatively said, "Child, your eyes." "Old man, I have an eye disease and can't see," Xuemu explained. "Poor child," the old man sighed, "you look beautiful." "It's okay, child. If you feel it with your heart, you can feel it like your eyes." "Okay." Xuemu took out a pack of meat and said, "Old man, this is the meat that Jiang Sheng asked me to bring to you. He has something to do and has gone far away. It may be difficult for him to come and see you these days." The old man quickly said, "Oh, how can this be done? Is it possible?" She quickly shrugged off and said, "You guys should take care of yourself more. I'm already old, eating meat is not a waste." Old man, please accept it, otherwise Jiang Sheng will come back and blame me, Xuemu advised. The old man saw the situation and had no choice but to take the portion of meat and keep thanking, alright, thank you very much, doll. Come on, come in and take a break. Old man, I have something else to do. I'll come see you after I've finished my work for a while, Xuemu gestured with a bow. After hearing this, the elderly woman nodded repeatedly and said, okay, okay. When Xinger comes back in the future, I will make some dishes and drinks for you too. Xuemu bid farewell to this old lady. On the way back, he was quite emotional. Although according to the law, Jiang Xing killed 4 or 5 people and committed heinous crimes. The ones that can be killed are all landlords who oppress the people, why not eliminate harm for the people? Xuemu could have forgotten Jiang Xing's request before his death. After all, it's better to have one less thing than one more thing. But he still fulfilled this promise. After all, being untrustworthy is no different from those so-called landlords and the like. However, in the future, it's better to be cautious about such things, so that we can survive well in the dungeon, collect more experience points and improve our strength faster. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Widows selling tofu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. I can counter kill. Seeking collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. I can counter kill. Seeking collection. Soon, Xuemu walked towards the grade C cell. Since he was personally promoted to prison official by He Jiaodian, the relationship between Xuemu and Song Wu has become somewhat delicate. Song Wu often casually cares about 2 things. But the more so, the more it appears to have been too hypocritical before. But now, Xuemu is on an equal footing with him, as long as the water doesn't invade the river. Xuemu would not take the initiative to trouble Song Wu. Unless he seeks his own death. Xuemu walked all the way to the grade C cell and heard the footsteps of Song Wu rushing over. He asked, Uncle Song, what's wrong? Although he didn't want to be polite, he still called out Uncle Song to his face. Xuemu, come with me and take a look at Zhang Biao's cell. That guy seems to be dying soon, said Song Wu as he pulled Xuemu towards the last cell. Is it almost over? Xuemu felt puzzled because the information page of Zhang Biao still existed well in the Criminal Decree Sutra. How can I say that if it's not possible, then it's not possible? But he still followed Song Wu over. Arriving outside the prison cell, although Xuemu couldn't see it, he could vaguely see Zhang Biao lying motionless on the ground through his gaze. Song Wu opened the prison cell and nervously said to Xuemu, this guy will be sent to the Ministry of Justice for trial in 10 days because he has harmed some local officials. If he were here, he would have died, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Xuemu naturally understood the seriousness of this and walked in. However, Song Wu took a step back and closed the door again. Xuemu's ears were sensitive, and he suddenly recognized the sound of the door lock. He turned his head and asked, Prisoner Song, who are you? At this moment, Zhang Biao, who had been lying on the ground all along, suddenly stood up from the ground. He patted the hay on his clothes and said calmly, Captain Song, do you mean what you say? After the matter is completed, I will find a dead corpse with a completely destroyed face to cover your bag, and I, Song Wu, will keep my word. Song Wu replied. Xuemu naturally understood what was going on, but he still asked Song Wu, Song Jailer, what are you really doing? My nephew, your father and I have been friends for decades. In theory, I can also be considered your uncle, but I have to do so. You, as a prison guard, were already sold by me on the day your father died, for a value of 100 taels. As you know, 100 taels have been delicious in the capital for several years. At first, I just wanted to drive you out of prison and make sure you don't become this prison guard, which can be considered worthy of your father. But you have climbed up to He Tingli. If I don't get rid of you, then I'll have to give back 100 taels, which Song Wu can't do. So, Song Wu looked at Zhang Biao inside and said, hurry up when you take action, it will make my nephew less painful. Zhang Biao impatiently waved his hand and said, I kill with just one breath of effort. Upon hearing this answer, Song Wu was very satisfied. Immediately after, he left. It is obvious that it is to create an alibi. As for Xuemu, he believed that death was inevitable. At this moment, Xuemu remained silent. Zhang Biao is a cultivator who opens the 5 layers of the pulse. I am only starting my pulse twice now. There is a several-fold difference in strength between each level. Although Zhang Biao is currently suffering serious injuries due to torture. But Xuemu still has no confidence in winning. He could only stand still and wait for Zhang Biao's behavior. Zhang Biao looked at Xuemu motionless and spat disdainfully, saying, You're not lucky. Although you're blind, don't worry, at least you won't die in peace. As he spoke, he suddenly charged towards Xuemu, clenched his fist, and swung it towards his head. Due to Xuemu's open vision, Zhang Biao's actions had already been clearly observed by him. His ears twitched slightly, and after feeling the punch, he immediately bent down and cleverly avoided Zhang Biao's first attack. Zhang Biao never expected that a blind man could dodge his own fist. At first, he was worried that blood would splatter everywhere, and even withdrew his strength. Unexpectedly, it went blank. Do you know martial arts? Zhang Biao asked. Xuemu did not answer, but instead stood firm and used his thunder fist. Although Tianlei fist is a low-level technique, he has been practicing it every night these days. Both strength and speed have greatly enhanced the essence of Tianlei fist. Zhang Biao was somewhat surprised and immediately retreated in succession. But the prison cell is already so large, there will be no place to retreat. Moreover, he estimated that Xuemu was at most a boy with a dual pulse. There is a huge gap in strength compared to oneself. So he decided to rely on his strength as a 5-fold player to directly compete. 2 fists collided head-on in the air. And Xuemu has a golden bell shield on his body, although it only has a 1% effect. Still withstanding a lot of damage. On the contrary, Zhang Biao felt even more pain from the impact of Tianlei fist and the wounds he had suffered from previous torture. He looked at Xuemu in a cold sweat, feeling that he underestimated this blind man. I can't even beat you, you idiot, when I open my pulse 5 times. Speaking, Zhang Biao rushed forward again. Song Wu picked up a bowl of tea and took a sip, then estimated that it was almost time, and walked towards the 3rd-level cell. He did not call on other subordinates, but planned to go and see the situation first, and only promote this matter after everything was safe and sound. Zhang Biao's escape from prison led to a rebellion, and Xue prisoner fought back with all his might, ultimately falling to the hands of villains. He was truly loyal and righteous. Thinking of this statement, Song Wu even mocked him, nephew sure, I know there is no one in your family. When the pension is paid, I will spend it for you. As for Zhang Biao, he had already prepared heading home. Song Wu could never let such a person go out, not because he was worried that he would continue to cause trouble, but because the dead are always quieter than the living. But when he walked to Zhang Biao's cell, his eyes widened. There are 2 people lying on the ground. Xuemu remained motionless. Zhang Biao is also next to him. To perish together. Song Wu was even a little happy in his heart, so he didn't have to do it himself. He opened the door lock and wanted to check if the 2 of them were really dead. The door lock was opened, and he squatted down, first walking towards Zhang Biao, who was closest to him. Well, I'm dead. Zhang Biao's death made Song Wu even more convinced that Xuemu would definitely not be able to survive. After all, Zhang Biao is a cultivator with 5 levels of pulse opening. How could Xuemu, a blind man, win the battle? But just as he approached Xuemu immediately sat up. Holding a broken bowl in his left hand, he wiped Song Wu's neck like this. In an instant, blood splattered. Song Wu widened his eyes and looked at Xue Mu, who suddenly sat up, wanting to reach out and touch him. But within 2 seconds, he fell to the ground. The mouth is still slightly open, as if to say something. But in the end, a pool of blood on the ground indicated that Song Wu had died. Died by Zhang Biao's side. Xue Mu wiped the broken dishes on his hand with his clothes, then placed them in Zhang Biao's hand, and calmly got up and walked out of the cell. Although he couldn't see it, he knew that Song Wu must have looked incredulous before his death. If you harm others, you'll end up harming yourself. Don't blame me. He spat out a mouthful and then shouted, "Everyone, hurry to Class C cell." Zhang Biao escaped and plotted rebellion. Song prison officials sacrificed themselves. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Want to take advantage? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Want to take advantage? Everyone, hurry to Class C cell. Zhang Biao's escape and rebellion. Song prisoner sacrificed himself. In an instant, the prison guards who were originally still fishing and punching were all running towards the Grade C cell. They often hear a prisoner talking nonsense about jailbreaking. But no one dares to do so. You should know that this is Jingzhou Mansion, the most heavily guarded prison of the Duqing dynasty. So the prison guards naturally didn't take it seriously one by one. But now that it has really happened, they are getting scared. More than 10 prison guards all ran to the stairs of the Grade C cell. They looked at Xue Mu and nervously asked, "Brother Mu, what's going on?" "I just patrolled the house and found out that Zhang Biao wanted to escape and killed the Song prison officials," Xue Mu said calmly. Ah. For a moment, everyone walked towards the last cell. But their footsteps dare not stride forward, afraid of the situation inside. Xue Mu said, "Zhang Biao is also dead." Now they walked over. When Hu Daming saw the scene in the prison cell, he couldn't help but feel nauseous. There used to be a lot of torture in the prison, but it didn't leave the ground covered in blood. At this moment, Song Wu was lying on the ground, his eyes wide open, and there was a scratch on his neck, surrounded by blood flowing from his neck. Zhang Biao on the side also remained motionless. Song prisoner, Song tour. Uncle Song. Everyone also feels regretful. Only Chen Ping was sweating profusely, and the corners of his mouth kept trembling. At this moment, Xue Mu asked, "Where is Chen Ping?" Chen Ping remained scared and stunned, not hearing him speak. It wasn't until Xue Mu asked for the second time that he regained his senses. I saw him anxiously asking, Xue, warden, what's wrong? Go find He Jiaodian and tell him that Song prison officials have been murdered by criminals." Yes, Xue Mu couldn't see Chen Ping's expression, but he could also tell from his tone that he was afraid. Even from a visual perspective, his walking posture is somewhat abnormal. But sooner or later, he will have to settle this account with Chen Ping. Just not at this time. Not long after, Chen Ping arrived. But He Tingli did not come. Chen Ping brought a letter and nervously said to Xue Mu, "Officer Xue, He Jiaodian is busy with important matters. He said he will settle the body of Officer Song and apply for compensation from the court to his family." "Okay, I understand." Xue Mu nodded and asked Hu Daming to read the contents of the letter. After confirming that it was his intention, he sent out the bodies of Song Wu and Zhang Biao. Subsequently, Xue Mu stayed in the room all afternoon until he was off duty and then walked out. In this afternoon, he regained his vitality. Looking back on the fight with Zhang Biao this morning, I still feel a bit scared. If it weren't for the fact that my experience points had reached the level of Kaimai double, I might not have the ability to confront him like this. It is even very likely that due to the lack of a golden bell shield, the 5 internal organs will be shattered and die directly. However, after this incident, it also made Xue Mu more aware. Be decisive in everything. Once hesitated, you will lose. After changing his clothes, Xuemu walked out of the prison cell. Just as he stepped out of the door, a hot image appeared in front of him. Based on body shape. She is a woman with a beautiful figure. Front. Person, convex back. Xuemu only then remembered this figure, as if he had seen it before. Su Ruyan this morning. Sure enough, Su Ruyan looked at Xuemu with a slightly tired expression, still bowing politely and asking, "Sir, my daughter's name is Su Ruyan. You haven't left yet?" Xuemu asked. "The little girl has promised adults that she will never leave until dark," Su Ruyan said with a longing gaze once again. "Sir, how is my father?" When she said these words, Su Ruyan's expression was clearly somewhat worried. Xuemu remained silent for a while before finally saying, he's okay." Upon hearing these words, Su Ruyan's hanging heart finally settled down. Then she continued to ask, "I wonder if my father is dressed warmly. Can you help me bring some clothes for him?" But this time, Xuemu refused, "No way." After speaking, he left straight away. "Big, Your Excellency." Su Ruyan seems unwilling. She stumbled towards Xuemu with small steps. But he was worried that he would anger the blind adult in front of him, so he could only follow behind and think of ways. Although this blind adult appears cold and reserved, his heart is better than that of other officials. Su Ruyan felt that if she begged him again, there might be a chance. But how could Xuemu not know that she was following him? After arriving on the street, she quickened her pace and wanted to shake off Su Ruyan. Su Ruyan was originally a young woman who didn't walk fast. She never imagined that someone who couldn't see could walk so fast. In the blink of an eye, she couldn't find Xuemu's figure. Based on her own speculation, Su Ruyan walked into an alleyway. Just a few steps away, she noticed that the people squatting on both sides were looking at her. The group of people in front of us are hooligans stationed on the nearby streets, all under the command of Hoku Hall. They usually collect protection fees and like to do some vulgar things. The people doing business on this street dare not speak up one by one. Coincidentally, Su Ruyan accidentally walked into their territory. Watching them all staring straight at her, she immediately lowered her head and planned to leave. The next second, a man with a scar on his left face stopped her from going. His eyes lit up and he asked, "Girl, where are you going?" Su Ruyan suddenly felt scared, so she had to explain, "I took the wrong path, I'm sorry." As she spoke, she wanted to avoid it. But how could that man make her run away so easily? He once again stood in front of Su Ruyan and said to the brothers behind her, "Brothers, there are beauties here, and their faces are comparable to the flower queen of Goeiwa Tower." As soon as these words were spoken, several men quickly approached with a malicious smile and said, "Brother Long, this little girl is really good looking. Come and show us a smile." Su Ruyan retreated repeatedly, and she forced herself to be brave. "How dare you act recklessly in broad daylight? Guess if we're going to mess around or not. Judging from this watery appearance, I guess she's also a permeable girl. Coincidentally, the young master has been doing a lot lately and needs to be moisturized. Brother, who will get started first?" Su Ruyan was frightened and at a loss by their teasing. She even wanted to mention her father's name, but as soon as she spoke, she stopped. Because her father is no longer an official in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. However, Su Ruyan, who would rather die than surrender, has a bit of bloodiness. She glanced at the stack of firewood placed behind her. "Take out a piece of firewood and say fiercely, 'Don't come over. If I die today, I will definitely use one of you as a cushion. So you're coming?" One of the men reached out his big hand, trying to take advantage. At this moment, a voice came from the entrance of the alley. "In broad daylight, the sky is clear and the sky is clear. Isn't this appropriate?" As soon as the words were spoken, everyone turned their heads to look. Including Su Ruyan. The originally dull gaze immediately carried hope. It's that blind adult. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Beat 5 at a time for follow. Up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Beat 5 at a time for follow. Up reading. The men looked towards the entrance of the alley and found a young man with his head down, leaning against the wall. The man with a scar on his left face, Chen-long, joked, "I said blind, do you want to be a hero to save beauty as a blind person?" "Ha ha ha, blind man. I'm afraid we don't even know how many people there are here, do we?" Those few people couldn't help but laugh. Xuemu, standing at the entrance of the alley, sighed. Actually, he didn't want to deal with this matter. He naturally understood the principle that more is better than less. And today I almost lost my little life. Who knows what else will happen next? So being careful in everything is the best. But when he noticed that Su Ruyan had stumbled into this alley because of herself, worried that she might be insulted as a result. After careful consideration, Xuemu ultimately chose to save Su Ruyan. After all, this girl waited from morning until afternoon to learn about her father's news. This kind of filial piety has no reason to refuse to save oneself from death. However, Chen-long did not intend to pay attention to Xuemu, but continued to look at Su Ruyan and said, "Beauty, let's solve it on that haystack. Don't worry, it will be done soon." Su Ruyan shook her head repeatedly, wanting to run in the direction of Xuemu. Upon seeing this, Chen-long immediately reached out and cursed, "Want to run? No way." However, the next second, his hand was injured by a piece of wood. Chen-long covered his hands and gritted his teeth in pain. He looked down and found it to be a cane. Chen-long glared angrily at Xuemu as he walked slowly, then pointed at him and cursed, "Do you know who I am?" "I don't know, I don't want to know either." Xuemu walked over calmly, then grabbed Su Ruyan's hand, picked up the cane, and prepared to leave. Su Ruyan saw him holding her hand, so she lowered her head and followed Xuemu tightly to leave. "Entering your mother." Chen-long couldn't bear such anger. He is a subordinate of Huku Hall, and he is used to being domineering in this street. Where can I bear such a temper? He directly picked up the waist knife attached at the back and chopped it towards Xuemu's head. But Xuemu had already noticed his movements. Listening to the direction of the knife, he took a slight step away, then turned around and kicked Chen-long to the ground. Chen-long fell directly and ate shit. He spat at the mud on the ground twice, then with the help of his younger brothers, pointed at Xuemu and said viciously, "Blind man, don't think you're good at fighting, little rascal. We have 5 people here. Do you dare to act recklessly? If you're sensible, get out of here." Perhaps the few younger brothers behind me were a bit wary of Xuemu's strength, and one of them even joked, "If you also want to taste this girl's taste, you can wait for me to come first, you can come again." Su Ruyan's face turned red as she listened to these filthy words. She really wants to scold the other party. But my father's guidance since childhood was to prevent her from arguing with others. Not discussing short and long with fools is her cultivation. But just endure it. Su Ruyan clenched her small fists, her thoughts struggling. However, before she could speak, Xuemu said, "Let her go today, I'll treat it as if nothing had happened. Otherwise, don't blame me." What a big breath. "Brothers, give it to me. I want to enter this woman in front of this blind man." For a moment, 5 men took out their waist knives and slashed at Xuemu in unison. Upon seeing this, Su Ruyan hurriedly exclaimed, "Be careful, sir." Xuemu remained calm and protected Su Ruyan behind him, then opened his gaze to gain insight. "With my own strength, I have come to Kai my double. Vision insight has even enhanced its power significantly." Xuemu could accurately predict the next actions of these people in front of him. I saw Xuemu pick up his cane and stab the first gray-clad man who rushed forward. Then he lifted a stick horizontally and hit the man on the left in the neck. Finally, he took a step forward and kicked Chen-long away. With just a few moves, 3 fell to the ground. Xuemu naturally wouldn't show mercy to such thugs and thugs. But he didn't give up either. As he watched them all fall to the ground and unable to get up, he planned to take Su Ruyan away. Just as Xuemu was about to pick up his cane, Qianlong, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly threw a dart. Su Ruyan was worried about hurting Xuemu and approached to block this dart. Although Xuemu couldn't see it, he had already noticed Qianlong's movements. But he never expected that Su Ruyan would stand in front of him. He quickly pushed away. Ah! But the dart still brushed against Su Ruyan's shoulder, scratched her skin, and blood flowed out. Qianlong saw that the surprise attack was not successful, so he stood up and planned to escape. But the next second, Xuemu came directly in front of him. I don't know when I had an extra waist knife in my hand, so I just wiped it at his neck. Just like when I killed Song Wu this morning. Without any hesitation. Qianlong's neck was bleeding incessantly. Then he fell to the ground. The other guys saw their big brother sending it like this and quickly kowtowed to spare their lives, saying, "Brave man, spare your life. Brave man, spare your life." Xuemu knew that they were all from Hukou Hall. Although I am a small civil servant in the imperial court, I always have a higher status than the people in Hukou Hall. But if we let them go, maybe there will be trouble in the future. So he said to Su Ruyan, "Turn around, close your eyes and don't look." Su Ruyan supported her arm at this moment, with a cold sweat rising from her forehead. Upon hearing what Xuemu said, she immediately obediently turned her head. The next second, she heard various pleading voices behind her. "Hero, no. Don't do it. Please, I'll kneel for you. Whatever you want me to do." After a while, Xuemu came to Su Ruyan's side and calmly said, "Let's go." Su Ruyan opened her eyes and saw him holding her hand, slowly walking towards the entrance of the alley. "I'll take you to see a doctor first. Where is your home?" Walking on the street, Xuemu asked. Su Ruyan was about to answer, but she realized that her eyes were dark and she knew nothing. Xuemu reacted quickly and immediately supported her waist. Su Ruyan's waist is very thin, she can hold it with one hand. Xuemu touched her head with his hand and noticed that she was sweating profusely. It seems that darts are poisonous. Not long after, Su Ruyan lay on Xuemu's bed. Xuemu put down his cane and sighed, "As a martial artist, you still managed to block that dart." In fact, even if the dart flew towards him, he had enough confidence to avoid it. Besides, I also have a golden bell shield to protect myself. He brought some medicine bottles and knives. Then I got started. Su Ruyan's shirt was taken off. Half of his shoulder was exposed. During this process, although Xuemu couldn't see it, but he can still perceive something very important through his gaze. People are very large. End of this chapter.